Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Can I begin by thanking members of the House and those others who acknowledged and congratulated me on my promotion a couple of weeks ago. It's certainly been a very hectic and busy time, and I'm looking forward to the challenges those portfolios hold. I also want to acknowledge my former junior whip, now the chief whip for the government, Louise Upston, and her new team of Tim McIndoe and number 3, the whippet, Jamie Lee Ross. I'm sure they will be a tremendous team and continue to keep the caucus energised. Mr Speaker, if there was any theme that underpinned Christmas 2012 for me, it was the theme of the Christmas hamper. And of course, many hampers were given out, but I think the interesting thing for me was the one that wasn't. And there was an article in the Otago Daily Times which rather warned me actually through the very challenging period of the closure of the hillside workshops, at least that part that wasn't taken up by Bradkin. And the work that local MP Claire Curran did to provide hampers for what was believed to be all the workers at Hillside. And indeed, she was quoted in the Otago Daily Times as saying she called for donations of hamper items for Hillside staff and said yesterday hundreds of products had come in from Dunedin businesses and individuals since the appeal was launched. Businesses that I think thought that would be donating to all Kiwi Rail workers who were affected by this, but apparently not. Because one member was not given a hamper. And that member, Mr Speaker, had something that the others didn't. He was not a member of the trade union. In fact, was quoted in the Otago Daily Times as saying, "I asked if there was a hamper for me and was told no. These are the facts as reported by the ODT. Because I was a national supporter and a scabber. The union people simply don't want me to have a hamper because I voted national and I always have." End quote. So those Dunedin businesses weren't donating to Hillside workers, they were donating to union workers. And Claire Curran cries tears not for Kiwi workers, but her union mates. Because when she had an opportunity to say this was a mistake, clearly there was a misunderstanding about who would get the hampers. She did not.
Point of order, Claire Curran.
I seek leave to make a personal explanation.
Order. The time to do that is between when members have the call. It's not a mechanism to interrupt a speaker, and I won't put the leave. But that's not saying the member can't do it. I'm informing the member when they can do it. Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I fear I've touched a nerve. However, there was an opportunity to say this was a misunderstanding. There was an opportunity to correct this. But rather, Ms Curran quoted in the ODT was that she understood some workers would not get hampers. Some, notice, not one. But she did not ask why. And she did not know whether hampers were only given to union members. She said she would not be taking any action. Well, I know what the public of Dunedin thought about that. Concerned though they were at the closure of the Hillside workshops, there was disgust on social media at the perceptions of that action. But roll on the new year, Mr Speaker, and we have last week's decision by the Auditor-General not, as Ms Curran had requested, to conduct a further inquiry into the purchase of flat-deck wagons by Kiwi Rail, and I note the OAG basically said, quote, "We have concluded that the decision to select CNR as a supplier was made for normal business and commercial reasons after a competitive market process, which happens to be exactly what Kiwi Rail was required to do under Section 4 of the SOE Act, an act passed by a Labour government. They could have amended it, but they didn't, and that Section 4 says that there was a requirement to adopt normal commercial practice. But the OAG goes on to say we did not identify any unfairness in the way the proposal from Hillside Workshops was treated, and concluded, significantly I should say for me, by saying we have, quote, seen no evidence to suggest improper influence over these decisions. So no influence. Kiwi Rail did exactly what they were required to do, follow normal commercial practice, invite Hillside to submit a bid, which they came a distant third on, and made a commercial decision which an act passed by a Labour government required them to do. And the only person prepared to stand up and say that they would change that law was Claire Curran, because Phil Goff, as leader of the opposition, came down. He said they wouldn't change the law. He said we'd look into it, we'd give Kiwis a go. Absolutely, that's required in any event. David Shearer stopped short of saying that he would change the law, but Claire Curran said no, under a Labour government we'd reopen Hillside, we'd give them the subsidies that they would need. We would take $160 million by Conservative estimates out of the pockets of hard-working taxpayers to fund that project, because unfortunately Hillside was not big enough or technological enough to compete on the world market. So there it is, $160 million more in subsidies, and heaven knows what else would come our way. Mr. Speaker, it's tough out there in manufacturing. It's not a crisis, but it is tough. This government doesn't have the luxury, however, of only talking about the negatives. There is job growth. I happened to visit Brad Ken yesterday morning. Brad Ken purchased the foundry at Hillside Workshops, and in fact their admin officers were moving into Hillside Road just this morning, so I was very grateful to them that they accommodated me. And they are upbeat. There is new work, there are new jobs being created, there are plenty of opportunities for the smaller kilns, the big pots that they have there, to do foundry work under 1 tonne, and they could become Australasia's leader in that market. So there is cause for optimism. Mr. Speaker, I just want to touch on some of those new responsibilities that I have as firstly Minister of Immigration, which perhaps on the face of it would seem like a rather dry portfolio, but I'm very excited by this, because this is an absolutely vital cog in the wheel of the government's business growth agenda. New Zealand is in a contest, a global contest for talent, for tertiary students, for tourists, and for migrants who are prepared to invest in this country. And I've been really encouraged by the manner in which Immigration New Zealand has improved over the last 4 years, and there are strategies underway which will supercharge that organisation and ensure that the skilled migrants that we need in order to take that business growth agenda forward will be here. I want to touch on one small matter that has been raised over the last few days in respect of the immigration portfolio, and that is the issue of asylum seekers and the passage of the Immigration Amendment Bill that is due for its second reading soon. I have been asked, and it has been claimed even in this House during oral question time, that there is no risk, that it would be completely impossible for a boat to get from Indonesia, for example, to New Zealand. Well, I want to remind the House that most of our ancestors arrived here in sail ships and waka. And anybody who thinks that a steel-hulled motorised vessel with a number of dozens or hundreds couldn't make New Zealand shores is frankly being naive. And I challenge Andrew Little to be saying the same thing if and when that event occurs. Because the risk is real, the possibility is real, and the response is necessary. We are fulfilling... Well, there we go. We have it on record. Mr. Little says, no, it's not real. Thank you. I shall mark the date and time, because the risk is real, and if Labor don't believe so, well, we'll just see. I want to just finish, Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Veterans Affairs. This is a very busy year for Veterans Affairs. Planning under the previous Veterans Affairs Minister, the Honourable Nathan Guy, is well underway for the 100th anniversary commemorations of Gallipoli, and there will be an announcement very soon, if not already, on the allocation of places for New Zealanders and Australians to that event. There are also a number of other commemorations taking place this year, which is going to be very important. Firstly, the 70th anniversary of the war in the North Pacific, the 60th anniversary of the signing of the ceasefire in Korea, and of course we have the very important work that veterans are looking for, and that's the rewrite of the War Pensions Act 1954. So I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, it's going to be an extremely busy year. I look forward to all of those things taking place as part of the important work this government will be doing.
Point of order, Claire Curran.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave to make a personal explanation in response to comments made about me by the previous speaker.
Yes, so you must be personal comments to you personally. Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Claire Curran.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I think it's important to put the correct facts into the Hansard around the donation of materials for Christmas hampers to the hillside workers and my part in that before Christmas. There were 112 hampers put together. More than $18,000 worth of goods were donated by dozens of local businesses, which I organised. And as I said, 112 hampers were produced. Not all of those hampers, the people given those hampers were union members. Quite a number of them weren't union members. And there were certainly more than 112 people still at Hillside. And the list of people who were donated, those hampers were given to, was certainly drawn up by the union delegates who gave me that list, and I was unquestioning in that because that was their right. As you can imagine, Mr Speaker, there was a lot of emotion at Hillside workshops before Christmas as 90 people lost their jobs due to the prioritisation by this government of lowest cost.
Order. Now, the member can only relate how this personally you're affected by the comments that have been made. You cannot get into debate. Has the member finished? Claire Curran.
I certainly think that there is relevance here because the Speaker, Mr Woodhouse, has made comments about the unfairness of one particular person.
No, look. Order. A personal statement is your response to be able to put your position, not a debatable, this is not a debate, it's about how the comments made by a previous speaker have affected you personally, and that's what you're right. You've got leave to do that, but you cannot then get into debate about the substance of that. So I ask the member, be very succinct on this because otherwise I'll close it down. Claire Curran.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. Certainly it had an effect on me having the wrong facts put into the Hansard by the member across the House. There were certainly many members received Christmas hampers who were not union members, and there was certainly more than one person who didn't receive hampers for very good reasons. Thank you.
Okay. Order. We move now to Catherine Della.